everybody. Welcome back to the show. This is the Science Dispatch podcast. My name is Cameron English. That is Dr. Chuck Dinerstein, Director of Medicine at the American Council on Science and Health. Chuck, what is going on, my friend?
Not a blessed thing. We're approaching Labor Day very quickly. Mm-hmm. I don't know what happened to the summer, especially in the last 2 or 3 days. It has that September weather vibe going, which is just strange.
I'm okay with it, man. The summer needs to mercifully burn away so I don't have to run my AC and so I can enjoy the falling, beautiful brown leaves and the cool walks with my dogs in the evening, which I love. So, farewell, summer. Yeah. Farewell. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. We're done with you. All right, we're doing something a little different today. We have a curious audience, a voracious audience that wants more knowledge, and so we put out a request for questions, and we got some interesting ones. So we sift through them, and we picked a few that we thought were most interesting. No disrespect to anybody else, but this is sort of like a broad reflection, I think, of what people are talking about on social media in terms of public health, the kinds of things they're seeing. You're scrolling through Instagram and you see some person, they could know what they're talking about, they could be full of crap, and they're saying, you should do a plunge into ice cold water because it'll make you 2 inches taller or whatever. So we're going to go through just 3 of these today, and we happen to have a physician on hand who treated the difficult public, the patient population. I count myself my beloved patients. Yeah, I count myself among the intransigent who is inherently skeptical. I tend to take my doctor's advice, but if someone says, "Hey, you should take this medicine," then I'm at least curious to go, "Hey, why?" So we all that to say, there's a doctor here who can keep the guardrails up so no one says anything too insane, and by that I mean me. So let's just take these in order, Chuck. So first up, we got a question from somebody on Instagram, I believe, who said, is there any difference between the quality of the protein, and I guess the nutrition more broadly, that you would get in, say, a protein powder or a protein bar versus some sort of a whole food, like, a steak or a piece of chicken or some sort of plant-based protein? Are you better off eating these whole foods as a source of protein, or is it okay to eat, I don't know, a protein shake? Are you getting the nutrients you need from that? What's your take?
I took this as the difference between a whole protein and quick proteins as found in protein bars and so on. So I think the first problem is that we're mixing up a little bit the content of what we're eating versus the delivery method for getting them. So let me separate that out. There are some proteins that are easily digested. Whey proteins are among them. So they are readily absorbed by the intestines. On the other hand, there are slower digesting proteins that take 4 or 5 hours to get into your system. And so delivery of the proteins will vary depending on the content. Content-wise, all proteins are good, but some proteins, depending on what you're hoping to do, may be better. So the archetypical one they talk about is for those people that are developing, wish to develop increased muscle mass for some reason. Leucine is a more beneficial protein because it's more readily incorporated into the muscle mass. And so sources of leucine are more beneficial for people that have that interest in mind. But leucine per se isn't absorbed more readily one way or another. Again, it gets back to whether you're having your leucine in a snack bar that follows your workout, or you're going to have your leucine in terms of whole proteins. Whole foods are generally more nutritious for you than isolated nutrients, simply because whole foods come with a range of nutrients that are good for you. When it came to looking at optimizing for muscle protein synthesis, when I looked around to see what was out there, there is some evidence to suggest that a quick fix in terms of protein may be beneficial for restoring your muscle after a workout. But that does overlook some of the other values of proteins. We use proteins for everything. Proteins are the building blocks for everything that's functional about our body. So that eating proteins has an important role in our immune system and all the enzymes that drive metabolism. So I think it's probably a little bit too narrow to think about eating specific proteins for specific reasons. It's probably much easier in general to eat as your mother keeps telling you, and as we keep mentioning, a balanced, varied diet.
What it sounds like to me is context is everything here. So, for example, when I started tracking my macronutrients a few years ago, I realized I was eating less protein than I needed, and it can be difficult to get it where it's supposed to be depending on your body weight and your various requirements. So maybe in that context, alongside eating a nutritious diet, a protein shake before you work out or after you work out, for example, might suit a legitimate purpose. So it's not either or, I think, is what you're getting at. Is that a fair way to put it?
It's fair to say that the calories associated with proteins are less than the calories that are associated with sugars. So there's some advantage in terms of that. As you get older, our ability to work with proteins diminishes somewhat. So it's more important that my fellow boomers get more protein in their diet than somebody in your age group. And then again, at the other end of the age spectrum, it's important to have additional proteins in the diet of the youngins because they're busily developing and they're storing them away. We don't, interestingly enough, I think that this is the interesting thing from a medical point of view is, unlike fat or sugar, we don't store proteins. There is no place that they're kept. So that if you're running a deficit of proteins in your diet, you are busily working away the functional qualities of your body. We see this in people that back in the 50s and 60s, when we had people in the hospital for long periods of time and we weren't feeding them because they had surgical complications and this and that, they lost a lot of their proteins, so they lost muscle mass, so they had increased weakness, having problems getting out of bed. They lost proteins involved with their immune function, making them more susceptible to disease. And it wasn't until the mid to late 60s that doctors fell into the idea of actually providing nutrition to patients while they were hospitalized for people that were not eating for prolonged periods of time.
Okay, so as always, there's a golden mean. Get what you need. Don't get too much. Don't get too little. Varied diet, and then context dependent. So talk to a dietitian.
There's nothing wrong with
it,
with the protein bar or any of these other things. It's just probably not a steady diet.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know that would be pleasant in any case to subsist on cookie dough flavored protein bars. But there you have it. There you have it. Question number 1 in the can. Moving on. This is interesting, Chuck. This is one reason I know I'm getting older is because some of these controversies arise, and I go, what are all these young people whining about? What's going on here? And, of course, we're talking about caffeine pouches. And there's products like these have been available for, I don't know, years now at this point. I mean, was it 4-Hour Energy is what it was called? These little caffeine shots you can get. They're about that yay high that you can get at grocery stores and convenience stores and so forth. But now
at the truck stop on your way out of town.
Yeah. You've got a 5-hour drive with your 2 kids, and they won't shut up, and you need to.
I need the 8-hour size.
Yeah. Now I've never used one of these. I have seen them at the store, but my understanding is they work like a nicotine pouch. So you pop one out of the container, you put it under your lip. The caffeine hits your bloodstream pretty quickly, and you're ready to go run a marathon or whatever, something like that. I couldn't find any data on how many kids are using these, and this was the question: is why are young teenagers, youth, whatever we're going to call them, why are they using these products? I saw lots of references from like school resource officers talking about a growing number, but I couldn't find any actual data from CDC on how widely used they are. But talk about why are they popular? Where do they come from?
So you can think of this as drinkless caffeine, much like you have smokeless nicotine. It's really from the same playbook, and you're absolutely correct. It's the fact that when you take in caffeine this way, it is a much quicker delivery system than brewing it in a cup of coffee or tea or a 4-hour or a 5-hour energy drink and getting it on board. The oral mucosa absorbs the caffeine and it very readily gets into your system. The reason why there are people doing it comes down to, I think, 2 words: tick-tock. And that it's just the latest fad. I guess we can talk about cold water immersion as another one down the line, but this is no different than what was going on back in whatever I considered my day, when it was, no-dose tablets, which is essentially a cup of coffee. So now the no-dose tablet's been crushed up, put into a sack, and you can put it in your mouth and let it absorb that way. All of these products basically have the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee. I was listening to some of the doctors' reports on mainstream media about it, and other than saying that caffeine will cause you to be a little bit more tremulous, a little bit higher heart rate, there's nothing that we've been able to identify as a real downside. I think that's part of the problem why you don't find a lot of data. So what most of the people that are against this jump to immediately is the fact that it's being marketed to underage children with various flavors. And so you start seeing that parallel with the discussion around vapes. And how they're marketed. Though it's interesting to me to think about, when you think about these caffeine pouches and then you compare it to some of the things that you can get at Starbucks, which are, very highly flavored, highly expensive caffeine delivery systems. I'm not sure that I think the kids are just kind of copying the adults in their own simple way.
And that's the interesting part to me, is that everybody likes flavor. It's not as if when you turn 21, you all of a sudden develop new taste buds and you go, I want everything to taste like dirt because I'm old and boring, right? My understanding is you're an occasional wine connoisseur. You like a bottle of wine that has some sort of flavor to it. I like my steak cooked medium and I like it to be flavorful. You know what I mean? So it's a strange line of attack. I get why people pursue it, but it's ultimately silly. I mean, flavor is just an inherent part of the human experience, right? I mean, you can explain it evolutionarily, you can explain the benefits of it. It's just strange to go, oh, the kids like blueberry caffeine. It's like, well, duh.
But it's even stranger. I mean, you can make an argument about vapes because we have an age set for that. There's no age limit that I'm aware of in any of the states about when a child can drink coffee. Nobody cards you at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts. So I think that this is really a fuss. Can I say a tempest in a teapot when I'm talking about caffeine? But I think that that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, there you go. I don't even know what that would look like. We just run up against the border on some of these conversations where you just realize there isn't that much you can do about it. You have limited resources and time. I mean, what are you gonna do? You're gonna send the cops after big caffeine pouch? I'm like, just, you know what I mean?
But or you can argue this from the other direction and show how caffeine is a harm reducing agent, because back in the 30s they were putting amphetamines in nasal inhalants and things you could buy over the counter. The people like that excitation rush, because it, at least, if nothing else, it lets them catch up with the things that they've been procrastinating about doing.
Okay. So again, just a little bit of measure. Obviously, if you have young children, I have young kids, I'm not going to let them have caffeine pouches or coffee for that matter. My son drinks coffee. It's whole milk with a little bit of coffee creamer in it.
So you're flavoring his milk. That's what you're doing.
How else am I going to be a terrible parent? I mean, I have to do something to. So just some common sense is the order of the day, is what I'm hearing from you, Dr. Dinerstein.
Yes, I'm afraid so.
Hashtag foreshadowing, you already mentioned cold plunging. This is one of these trends also on social media. It seems more popular among my cohort, that is like younger middle-aged men who are trying to add some excitement to their lives, or I don't know, they think it helps recover after a workout or something. What's your take on this? Looking at the research that's been done, which is limited, it seems to be, there may be something to this, something to like hormesis, like some sort of controlled stress that can help your body recover or get stronger in some managed capacity, perhaps, but it seems very inconclusive.
Okay. So yeah, I should begin by saying I have a bias.
Okay.
I grew up in Southern California. Water to me requires a chrome ladder and to be 80 degrees or so. It's just how I am. I'm not a big fan of cold water. So when I went back to look at it, there's absolutely no doubt that throwing yourself into a pool of water at 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit will cause some significant physiologic responses. And that's been true forever and a day. And the primary initial response is, besides your mind going, WTF, is that everything vasoconstricts, that you do not want to be losing body heat, and your body immediately shuts down all the blood flow to your surface area in order to conserve heat. You vasoconstrict and you rapidly increase the amount of blood in a much smaller container. And as a result, that will increase your heart rate. And in addition to increasing your heart rate, it'll increase your blood pressure. So those are true physiologic responses. Now, the people of the Scandinavian countries have taken this a step further. First, they go into the sauna, where the heat causes all of their blood vessels to vasodilate, so that brings their blood pressure down. Then they jump into the cold water, and there's a massive, almost instantaneous reversal of the vasodilation to vasoconstriction, and your pressure goes up. And I think that that's where a lot of the thoughts about the cold benefits come from. There's no doubt that getting yourself into cold water will, in that sense, slow the circulation, so it may be more conducive for sore muscles from exercising to recover, because you're cutting down on the number of inflammatory mediators circulating in the area. So there's some good arguments to be made about that. As a budding Zen kind of person, cold also stimulates the vagus nerve, which has autonomic responses to relax you, to relax and digest. And so there's probably some benefit there, though the benefits there are ill-defined at best. And I think that that's probably the case for most of what we see about cold. There's great evidence that it causes a physiologic response, but there is not significant evidence to show that that physiologic response then pays off in big health outcomes down the line, especially since it's transient. Once you get back out of the cold water, within 5 or 6 minutes, your body circulation is back to what it considers normal.
I saw a video recently. It's pretty well known online. There's this guy in Iceland or something, and he's standing on a cliff, and he jumps off this cliff. It's snowing. He jumps off this cliff into a lake or something, and it's been cut open because it's iced over. And in the video, the clip, the comment on the video is something like, "Men, what's stopping you from doing this?" And my favorite response was from a philosopher who's like, "I don't know. I got to take my kids to school, and I have papers to grade. Like, this is stupid. What is this?"
Common sense stops me.
Right. So it strikes me as it's sort of caught up in this kind of faux masculinity, not to go down another rabbit trail, but it seems to me like there's this sort of like, well, I'm a man and I'm doing it because I'm a man. Like it's, so whatever the benefits are, and it sounds like there are some, it's caught up in this, this self-perception that people are trying to cultivate online. And the same thing happens for women, and it happens for whatever group you want to talk about.
The Polar Bear Club. I mean, every New Year's, out here on the East Coast, every New Year's Day, we have people running into the surf. I'm not sure what the purpose is, but that's what they do. There are two possible downsides to it. I should mention, just to be fair. One is that prolonged lounging there in the water will cause hypothermia. Hypothermia will kill you, depending on how cold the water is. The people on the Titanic, not only did they drown, they became hypothermic. So you should take that in consideration. And certainly anybody that has underlying cardiovascular disease, driving your blood pressure up by 20 or 30 points over the course of a minute or so is probably not a good test of your heart. Or it's a good test of your heart, but you may want to do it under more controlled circumstances.
I just finished a book about the Titanic, and that was a horrifying read. That experience, 28 degrees Fahrenheit, you freeze to death within 20, 25 minutes. Most people didn't drown. Some of them did. Like, they jump in, it was so cold, they're just like, oh, and then they swallow water and die. But if you weren't fortunate enough to have that experience, it's like the experience is something like being poked with 1,000 needles, like all over, until your nerves just give out and you're like, all right, we're done.
well, my favorite story about that, I guess it was Mrs. Vanderbilt. I want to say that, but I could be wrong. Whose husband died in the Titanic. Left money to Columbia, and with this only stipulation being that because her husband had died in the Titanic because she felt he didn't know how to swim, that all students graduating with a bachelor's degree from Columbia must pass a swimming test as part of the certification before they can graduate. So.
Crazy stuff. Yeah. Just as a concluding thought, there's I'm getting old, so I'm developing weird habits. But there's a Titanic museum in Kansas, I think, and they maintain a little tub with the exact temperature of the water that people swam in, and you can put your fist in it, and you can watch them do it, and within 8 seconds, they're like, my hand is on fire. I have to, I'm like, this is brutal. So, again, not too cold. let's not be nuts about this. Give it a shot if you think you're healthy and it might have some benefit. Just don't be an idiot. That's all. That's generally good life advice. Is just don't believe what you see on TikTok. I think that's the moral of the story. Okay. All right. Well, that'll do it for us. If you have more questions, we will be happy to do another episode like this. So send them in, and then maybe in a few weeks we'll tackle some more. But there you go. Right. Protein is good. You can eat a protein bar without keeling over and dying. You can enjoy caffeine without dying as well. You can do a cold plunge without dying. Just be moderate. That's all. That's all we're saying. I think that's a fair takeaway. Is that fair, Dr. Dinerstein?
And certainly don't do them all at once.
That's coming next, right? Yeah. Well done. Well done. He's a physician and a comedian. All right. Follow us on social media. It's at ACSH.org on X. I am at CamJEnglish. Our colleague Anna Dolaski does our other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Look us up, ACSH Matter of Facts. Short 1-minute videos, infographics, tackling all of the internet's pressing science questions, and sometimes they bleed over into the show. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.